Good afternoon, friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. And this week's show is called HBCU or not a HBCU. HBCU. Speaking of St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas. And this show was inspired. Y'all hear my voice is kind of raspy. I'm still getting over this sickness or this bug that I had a couple of weeks ago. I'm feeling great. It's just my voice. That's the only thing. But I decided to do the show for a couple of reasons, actually. And one reason is because I was blocked on Facebook on my normal page, and I felt like it was some BS. It's like they're starting to mess with me again. The reason that they gave me for blocking my ability to go live on my normal page that I do the blueprint on, because back in October I posted about a slave rebellion, basically a slave rebellion. I don't know if it was in Louisiana. One of the posts where you pass on news and information. They said that was against their standards, whatever. So I tried to challenge it. They told me I could challenge it. And when I said yes, I want to challenge it, it's errored out. It said, unfortunately, we are not able to um, access this information at this time. So basically, I was blocked. I'm like, cool, my voice is not there, but whatever. This is the end of the season for me. Ramadan starts in a couple of days. I won't be probably doing any shows. So I'm like, the hell with it. They gave me a 30-day ban of going live and posting some type of information that they told me. So I was content with just saying, the hell with it. But then I thought, no, I'm not going to let them stop me and block me from doing what I like to do. And another reason that I continued to go ahead on with the show on a different page is me and my daughter had a conversation. I believe it was Thursday or Friday. I believe it was Friday. And it had nothing to do with what I'm going to do the show on today. But in the midst of the conversation we were having, my daughter lives in Atlanta, and I was using Atlanta as a template or a model on what we need to do in the Black community or how we can be more effective in the Black community. And the template that I was using Atlanta for, that I was, from my perspective, I was telling my daughter, Atlanta is the only thing that's really happening in Georgia. Atlanta is the Mecca of Georgia, the only major city. Augusta, um, Columbus, whatever, they have no comparison when it comes to Atlanta. So Atlanta is the city in Georgia for people that want to do things with their lives or want things to happen. And I was saying in different states, it's not necessarily so. In Florida, you have Miami, or you have Jacksonville, and you have Tampa. You have different major cities in Florida for Black people to do what they want to do, and they're basically doing it separately. And if I bring Texas as an example, Houston is probably the largest Black population or populated city in Texas. Then probably right there is Dallas, but they are not close to each other. And then you probably would have Austin and San Antonio somewhere in there. I don't think El Paso was in the mix at all. But it's if everyone in Dallas or in Houston went to one place and had a major Black populated metropolis, I believe that the success for Black people would be different than it is now in the places that's separated. A lot of people from San Antonio, which is a very small Black populated city, they mainly they say, well, if things are not popping the way they want it to pop as far as the Black population, they're going to say, well, I'm going to Houston. It's different there. Some of them that have family or know people in Dallas, Dallas is a little further. They're going to say, well, I'm going to Dallas. It's different there for Black people in the Black population. So this was the conversation I was having with her. And I was saying, for all that's going on and all that's going wrong for Black people today in America, they need these little havens where we are doing things and a lot of like-minded people are getting together and doing things. So this is the conversation that me and my daughter was having. And in the midst of that, she broke off and said, well, San Antonio is not what people think it is as far as negativity and or negatively. And San Antonio has a lot more going on than people in San Antonio actually realize. She was saying the Black history and the things that Black people are doing. And I'm like, okay, I live here. You're in Atlanta. And she was born here. She went to high school here. So we got into that conversation. And she said, like, a lot of people wouldn't realize San Antonio has a HBCU. And I kind of mumbled something under my breath, basically like, where? She was like, and I already knew what she was going to say. St. Philip's College, East Side San Antonio, on Martin Luther King Street. Um, I knew what she was going to say, and she kind of chuckled, and she said, "That's a HBCU." And my question is it really? So that's what I wanted to do the show on because that inspired me because I've been hearing this time after time. I think my cousin Jada on Facebook mentioned something about St. Philip's being a HBCU. She didn't know that. She used to live here. I think she lives up in the Dallas area, Metroplex, whatever. But she said something about San Antonio, St. Philip's College being a HBCU. I grumbled at it then. This was probably about 5 years ago. Why would I grumble at a college being an HBCU or calling itself a HBCU? If you go to St. Philip's webpage, it's going to say that it is registered federally as an HBCU. This is what some people see that don't know the history of St. Philip's, and then a lot of Black people get prideful about it. So yeah, I me and my daughter start having a conversation. And so she gave her perspective. She brought up Spelman, and I was like, "Yeah, I know what Spelman was named after, and all these things." These used to be these videos circulated on social media where they talk about HBCUs, and it was negativity about from Black people about HBCUs, and where the namesake of Spelman came from, which is supposed to be the prototypical HBCU, the front runner of one of the ones. And I told her I already knew the history of the name. Those that don't know, Spelman College, Georgia, was named after Laura Spelman Rockefeller. It was her maiden name. She was an abolitionist, which is she was one of those people that believed in abolishing slavery. She was an activist and an anti-slavery activist, and some of her family members were. So they started Spelman College, and it was named after her her maiden name. Some people took exception, like y'all don't even know one of y'all top university or colleges is named after a white person, and blah blah blah. I'm thinking that's ignorance because you don't know, and it doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned. Flip the script to St. Philip's College. I went to St. Philip's College. My daughter, in the conversation that we started having was, she said, "I got something to do. This will be continued." And I'm like, I hope it is continued, but it hasn't continued until now. So I'm hoping she don't even see this because when I do have a discussion with her about this, I'm going to give my perspective on when is a HBCU not an HBCU. I graduated from St. Philip's College. I didn't start my college career at St. Philip's College. If you go to my webpage, Kevin Lewis page, it's going to say college, Monterey Peninsula College in California, Monterey. That's where I was stationed at last. And while I was in the military, I took college classes. One of the local Monterey Peninsula colleges was a local college there. That's where I started my college career. I finished a lot of the classes that I needed to complete my degree at St. Philip's when I came home from the military. Right there on the east side, I was, struggling. I was not college, as far as I was concerned, I was not college material. Not that I didn't believe that I had the intellect, the mental capacity. I didn't want, I didn't like school until I started going to school. Until I started having classes, sociology classes with white people that were trying to tell or give their opinion about the Black community that I was coming up in and their solutions. And that kind of invigorated me and lit a flame and for me. And having those debates and discussions. The best class that I ever took was an English class, my first class of college, and it was from a professor that had that taught at Stanford. And what happens is these college professors and things like this, what they would do part time or when they would come to the military bases to teach classes for military personnel at night. My first class, and I wish I knew this guy's name because he was very impactful. He was the most impactful instructor I ever had. He had taught at Stanford, which is prestigious, and he was doing part-time work for military teaching. And it was my English class that broadened past English. He taught a little psychology in this English class. He taught a little history, political history, and things like this. And he taught me how to debate and even debate myself in what I believe. And this was very impactful for every class that I took after that and for every book that I have read since then. It gave me a different approach on breaking down what it is, the information that I'm receiving. And this is what this guy taught me. That set me off on a journey. And what St. Philip's did, I think I took most of my electronic communication classes there. I ended up with 2 degrees, one of those dual degrees. If you take these couple of more classes, you'll get 2 degrees. So that's what I did. I think I only went and got 1 degree. The other one I never even bothered to pick up. I never walked the stage. I never cared about walking the stage. That was my mentality. What I do love about, or what I did love about St. Philip's was their library and their resources. Most of the things that I started learning about being pro-Black and Afrocentric, I got out of St. Philip's library. Most of my religious perspectives and knowledge that I was gaining about different theologies, I got out of St. Philip's College. So I am grateful. I love St. Philip's for the information and the resources that it provided me. I never wore that title of being a St. Philip's graduate because to me, the classes were just classes. Even though a couple of them, like I said, my philosophy, logic class, I love those. That's my probably one of my favorite subjects. Um, I never saw it as a HBCU. My daughter went to a HBCU. She went to the Clark University of Atlanta. Right there with Spelman and Morehouse, right next door, and all these things. When I took her to college, I had a HBCU experience. I never had a HBCU experience, not at St. Philip's. This is why I'm asking, when is an HBCU not an HBCU? I went to St. Philip's website. This is something I was trying to tell my daughter or say to my daughter at the time. With If you go to St. Philip's College website, it's going to say that it's registered as a HBCU. It's going to give a history. I believe it started in March the 1st, 1888 or 1898, one of the oldest colleges in America. Started as a sewing class, a school for sewing for 6 girls. This is the background, a Black school. For those that got out of slavery, they started the Steptoe, whatever the guy's name is. He started a sewing school for the those that had got out of slavery, but which is Black Girls School for sewing. That's great, and it's a community type college now. People called it a junior college at one point. I don't know when it jumped in and out of those things, but one thing that I never got from going to St. Philip's, I never got that it was a HBCU. And the reason I never got that it was a HBCU because it doesn't present or represent itself as an HBCU. So my question is, when is a HBCU not an HBCU? Or when is a school that's not a HBCU classified as an HBCU? And my argument, or my point that I wanted to argue, is nothing about St. Philip's when you go on that campus that says we are HBCUs. And I told my daughter this. I say, no matter what, even when I dropped her off at school, Clark, Morehouse, Spelman, they let you know you are at an HBCU right now. A lot of the verbiage that I picked up there, I brought home with me because I felt a sense of pride, and I wasn't going to the school. I was dropping off. They was brother, sister, blah, blah, blah. I came home, I'm feeling this stuff like sister, brother, blah, blah, blah. I brought something with me. I felt it. For all the year and a half, however long I went to St. Philip's, I never felt anything like that. The campus doesn't even look like that. So when my question is, when is a HBCU not an HBCU? Because one thing that you do when you go to a website of an HBCU, that's the first thing you're going to know. They're going to tell you we are an HBCU because they wear it with pride. That's one thing. And if they don't tell you, they will show you that they are HBCU. You will see it on the campus. You will see mostly Black students there. You will see very few white students there. You'll see very few Hispanic students there. The majority of the kids will be Black. That's how you know that you're at a HBCU. There's some schools out there that may be like that, and you have to ask, man, is this a HBCU? And they'll say, no, it's not. The ones that are, they want you to know that they are. St. Philip's, I don't get that on their campus. Now, the HBCU experience. If you look at St. Philip's band, one of the things about HBCU, they band will let you know that this is an HBCU. If you look at St. Philip's band, I haven't seen St. Philip's band. I will go out on a limb and say it doesn't look anything or sound anything like a HBCU. The campus doesn't look anything or sound anything like it's a HBCU. When they say they register as an HBCU for whatever reasoning behind it, and I speculate that because there's federal funding for HBCUs. Sometime in Trump just gave millions of dollars. Biden gave millions of dollars. Every administration sets aside money for HBCUs dedicated. So it behooves you to label yourself, if you can, whatever stipulations that it takes to say, yes, we are a HBCU. They didn't say that on their website. When you go to St. Philip's website, they have a video. People studying there and, classrooms and then somebody pulling things into tubes and, goggles on, all this scientific stuff and other people doing other things, checking your heart rate. They got some kind of medical studies, I guess, going on, air conditioning and motor, you know, automotive class. But before you even see your first Black person, this video of the people that's at that school goes on, and you probably see like 25 people or so before you see the first Black person in the video. How is that HBCU material? Then the video goes on and you may see another Black person. Then it's 10 more people that then you may see another Black person. Well, this is a representative of the demographics of St. Philip's. So when you go on there and you ask, and you have to click on information about the school's history, and it says, yes, We are registered, federally registered as an HBCU. That's great. I don't know what it takes to be able to federally register, maybe because it started as HBCU, but it says right next to it also a HSI, which I believe is Hispanic Service Institution. So right next to St. Philip's claiming that they are registered as an HBCU, they go on to say we are also a HSI, which is Hispanic, um I guess a service institution. So this is what, when you go to St. Philip's College and you talk about St. Philip's, this is what they tell you. Yes, we are federally registered. It says our college is one of the oldest, most diverse colleges in the nation. We are federally designated as a historically Black college and a Hispanic serving institution, HSI. I don't know how you are, what designates you as a Hispanic serving institution. Maybe I'm thinking the population. So when you look at St. Philip's population, they are 70% Hispanic. On the east side of San Antonio, they are 70% Hispanic, 13% white, and 10% Black. When do you see a HBCU that has a 10% Black enrollment? But for some way, they are clinging to the name of HBCU. So if that's the case, if I want to accept that, I could say, man, I went to a HBCU. And when you look at the shows I do on social media, the two shows, one on YouTube, um, one is the Blueprint Today. I should be proud to say, yeah, I went to a HBCU, and it should be evident. Maybe this brother went to a HBCU. I'm always advocating for HBCUs. I think the HBCUs is our lifeline for our kids, is the lifeline for the Black community. They put out a high number of Black professionals in every field, whether it's medical, dental, whatever. Most of our professionals um, in these genres, they come from HBCUs. I was going back and forth with people about the whole Jackson State Deion Sanders separation, and how I was bothered by it, and people was, loving Dion, and they was like, he should do whatever he want to do. And I'm like, I'm not talking about the individual. I'm talking about us as a community. I'm talking about an avenue of success for us. We need to get the best that we can get to enhance our enrollments as far as sports is concerned, because sports drives most of the colleges and university in America. That's where a bulk of their revenue comes from. And the bulk of their revenue is coming from the shoulders and the backs off of Black athletes. So yeah, if we got resources that's feeding these other schools while we are over here with our own colleges and the HBCUs that's struggling because we're not getting the athletes that we should. We're not getting our own top tier 5-star athletes because we would rather go to a primary white institution. Therefore, we're fledgling and begging for money, and then they can uh, give an opinion about who we can have as professors and things like this. And I think we should have some of the top Black educators working at HBCUs. Some of the top Black athletes, or many of them at least, should be going to HBCUs, and our schools will be thriving with resources and putting out a product that can help people that need a Black product in their community. That's my argument. That's not St. Philip's. That's my argument. That's HBCUs. So I was one of the ones that always advocated to improve. People tell me what a HBCU isn't, and I'm like, that's our fault then. Whatever it isn't, and whatever other colleges are, I'm saying it's our fault because we are not backing us like we should. And we do that in a lot of our communities, period, with everything. We don't look out and find black businesses to patronize these black businesses. We don't look for black dentists. We don't look for black doctors' offices if we have any. And if we don't, it's because we are not thriving to do it. Many of our people in the medical field would rather go work for somebody else that don't look like us. They rather go work for this hospital. Don't see the need or the urgency to have our own clinics and hospitals and care facilities or whatnot. And this is something that I believe needs to change. And I believe that change happens when we change our perspective on our HBCUs. So anyone that knows me would know that I would have been proud to say that I went to a HBCU, even though I don't believe that's the case. I don't consider St. Philip's an HBCU because I went there, because I live not far from there. I've known it since I used to just visit San Antonio before I lived here. My grandmother lived right around the corner from it. And it should have stamped in my mind at that time, HBCU, but it never did. And it probably never will. So when is a HBCU? When you can be classified, if I take that classification, classified as a black person, when is a black person not a black person? When their mentality is not that of a black person. When they think, when they have a European mindset, when they have that individualized mindset, or when they want to be separate from the community. That's when we will look at a black person that appears to be a black person that has black on their birth certificate, but we don't see them as being black. And this is the same thing I'm saying about how we should see St. Philip's. It's an odd thing that happens in some of these small towns, smaller towns. San Antonio's not really a small town as far as population. It's a small town mentality. And it has that Napoleon type small mindset. And what I mean by that, that Napoleon type, they said Napoleon was a short person, so he had that attitude where, hey, he's ready to fight, he's ready to, whatever. And I think San Antonio has this mindset. There's a lot of towns or cities I went to. They're not the major city in the state, and they're looked at second tier to other bigger cities. And I think San Antonio has this complex, this Napoleon complex, where it's always out to prove something, that they are just as good or almost as good as any other place. They want to put themselves in that category. And this is something that I see a lot about San Antonio, because with a city that has their own HBCUs, they don't have to reach to say that we have one. San Antonio is trying to reach a lot, and I'm talking about Black San Antonio. No one else in San Antonio is caring about or wanting to classify anything in San Antonio as a HBC or close to that. Those people that want to big up San Antonio, big up Black San Antonio, they will reach out and say, "Yeah, we have an HBCU," and never have visited the campus. And the only thing they need is to see it's calling itself designated federally as a historical Black college. And they should scoff at that, because it's not. You could call yourself what you want to call it if you have reasoning and justification or legal justification to be able to have that label. You are not that. You could say, I'm a Black woman, I'm this and that, and then you could be totally opposite of and hating your own and not wanting to deal with the Black community. And then when it benefits you to say something about being Black, you want to say that, then we're not going to look at you as being Black. And this is how I'm looking at St. Philip's. People, other people that went to St. Philip's, you could feel and say what you want to say, but I'm gonna say this. Like my daughter brought up Spelman, and I know it was videos. Spelman, that was named after the Rockefeller's wife, and that was her maiden. Okay, it's still black. And I'm gonna tell you how black Spelman is. 98% of the demographics of their enrollment is black. 98%. Morehouse, right next door. Spelman is a woman's college. Morehouse is a men's college. Clark is uh, mixed college, just a college like that. They are all right there. Morehouse is 98% black. Those are HBCUs. St. Philip's is 10% black, 70% Hispanic. This is why it's a Hispanic serving institution. Those Hispanic people that's going there, they are not learning anything black. They're not learning anything about black culture, black studies, or anything. In fact, when I look up St. Philip's curriculum, the degrees that they're offering, they have no classes in African American studies or African diaspora studies. Most HBCUs or many HBCUs have those type of classes. Prairie View has their diaspora African American studies, which is a HBCU not far from San Antonio. It's far enough, but it's not far. That's a HBCU. St. Philip's is masquerading when it's beneficial for some reason to say that it's a HBCU. I am not an advocate of any business that does that. If it's a black-owned business and it doesn't want to be known as a black-owned business, then I don't want to patronize you for being a black-owned business. That's how I feel. If you're a black-owned business, you should be proud to be a black-owned business. And you should state that. You should not hide from that. And if you are hiding from it, then I don't want to patronize you. I don't believe we should. If you're a HBCU, that should be one of the first things that we see on your page, but it's not that because you're not that. It's hard for you to perpetrate being a HBCU on your college page when your video is showing 70% other people than black people. When your studies is nothing African American or Africana diaspora. Only thing black about your college is your location in San Antonio, the east side. The east side is San Antonio's major black populated area. So no, I don't see myself as being a graduate of a HBCU. I would love to have that title, but I didn't and I don't. So no, I don't recognize San Antonio having an HBCU. I damn sure don't recognize St. Philip's being an HBCU college now. You could tell me it started out as one. That's fine. As far as the names and Spellmans and all these, and I brought that locally. I think I did a show like about that years ago because I don't care about the name that's on the building. If you're in local San Antonio and you're talking about the major black high school, and most of the time that I could speak of, it would have been Sam Houston High School. That was the most densely populated um, black high school over the decades in San Antonio, Texas. I don't care who the school was named after, Sam Houston, and what his background actually was. When you go to the campus, it's a black campus. You could tell me about who it's named after, and you could tell me a side of town or a street has the most, heavily populated black people in the city, and it could be named after whomever. but we know the black sides of town. And it doesn't matter what name of that section of town is what it's named after. The proof is in the pudding. The pudding is chocolate. So I know it's a chocolate pudding. If you have a Martin Luther King high school and it's 70% non-black, then it is not a black high school. If it's a 10% black populated high school, it is not a black high school. If you have a high school named after Bush or whomever, and it's 80% black, it's a black high school. They're gonna act like it's a black high school. The teams are gonna tell you it's a black high school. Everything about it is gonna tell you it's a black high school. I don't care what name is on the building. So we use the Spelman as an example of a 98% black school. And now I'm gonna use St. Philip's as a 90% other than black school, calling itself an HBCU. That's what I wanted to talk about. I don't know if I had any followers, anybody able to follow me on this Kevin Lewis page. But it's the last show before Ramadan. I appreciate everyone showing up. Hopefully, y'all be able to catch it. I share it to my regular page, and I'll be interested in seeing some of the comments that some of y'all may have as far as that's concerned. But that's what I needed. That's what I wanted to get off my chest. It's almost comical as far as I'm concerned. Um, when I'm hearing people wanting to brag about having a black high school, I mean, a black college or university that's not really a black college or university. To me, that tells of people that's starving or wanting that type of attention to say we are what other places are when you don't. And if you want it to be, then build that. Or I don't know how you will get people to go to this college. You're not going to get those people out of the college, especially considering itself uh, Hispanic serving institution. But I appreciate everyone that showed up. Um, I will be on the John Kev show Tuesday, the first day of Ramadan. My brother John called me, so we will do the show. But after that, I should be going black for the rest of Ramadan. I appreciate everyone showing up. Peace.